Hello, and thank you for joining me today. Well, this is the Monday, December 20th edition of our video devotionals. We call this Marvelous Monday, and we appreciate you being with us today. Hope you've had a good weekend and a good Sunday, and we had a great Sunday. We had wonderful attendance, and then we had some wonderful testimonies, some kind of what we call kind of sensitive, maybe difficult to say, and yet through all of it, they were praising the Lord, and they were good for us to hear. And then we had our Sunday afternoon / evening service, and then we took the church bus, and saw some Christmas lights, and then kind of capped it off with stopping at Krispy Kreme and let everybody get some individual or even a dozen donuts, and that was kind of neat. Had a good time together. So a very busy week this week, of course, for obvious reasons, and hopefully you're going to have a great week of it, and then a great Christmas coming up. So what I thought we'd do this week is we'd look at, as a theme, the connections of Christmas hymns to the Bible, of course. Not just the general, of course, it's about the birth of Christ, but some specific things. So today we're going to be in Micah chapter 5, verse 2. Give you a chance to find your Bible. And we're going to kind of be looking at the old Christmas carol, Old Little Town of Bethlehem. So we're going to be in Micah chapter 5, verse 2, and give you a chance to find that. Now, thank you for all who watch these videos as we're getting close to the end of the year now. Of course, we think back of this year, and of course, as it kind of continued from last year with this pandemic phase, and the way things are may never change, but that's okay. God never changes, and God's still good to us. He's faithful and true, and He's going to guide us through everything we've ever been through, and including what we go through now. But all that to say, thank you for all who watch these, and we appreciate any comments, and especially you that go all the way back to April 1, 2020, and we're coming up on, it'll be 2 years in April. Isn't that amazing? And so we appreciate you very much. And then anybody that, of course, has come along here in the last little bit, some of you have. Okay, so Micah chapter 5, verse 2. Notice what it says here. It says, "But thou, Bethlehem, Ephratah, though thou be little among the thousands of Judah, yet out of thee shall he come forth unto me, that is to be ruler in Israel, whose goings forth have been from of old, from everlasting." And of course, going back to the beginning of the verse, "But thou, Bethlehem, Ephratah, though thou be little among the thousands of Judah." So the old song, Old Little Town of Bethlehem, how specific it is. I mean, so the songwriter was definitely acquainted with the scriptures, not just the fact that the town was the size of the town. The Bible specifically says you're little. It may seem insignificant among all the other ones, but you're special because Jesus would be born there. Now, a man by the name of Philip Brooks wrote this hymn. In 1868 is when it was first introduced to the world. And, of course, we're talking about a long time ago. But here's what's interesting about Mr. Philip Brooks. Of course, he was a preacher, and he had taken a trip to Israel in 1866, and specifically remember seeing Bethlehem, the little town. Of course, it's south of Jerusalem, outside of Jerusalem, the little town of Bethlehem, the city of David. We know that. We know that he was prophesied to be born there, not just because Micah tells us, but because we knew that he would be born in the city of David. And the angel said that the night that he was born, and that's Bethlehem. So here's Mr. Philip Brooks, and he writes this song, and he was moved by the fact that he saw the little town of Bethlehem in his day, in 1866. And then, of course, referring to the scriptures here. So, of course, the practical side of this is the fact that Bethlehem was not the big city of Jerusalem by comparison. It was not where you would think the king of Israel would be born, the Messiah, but he was born in Bethlehem, the city of David. And of course, the connections to David and how the Lord promised that one day in the future he's going to sit on the throne of David. So very, very interesting there. And then, of course, the littleness of Bethlehem. So no matter who you are, you may think, well, I'm insignificant. I don't, on the radar of life and amongst everybody, I don't even probably register, you might think about yourself. And yet the Lord often takes what we call, and sometimes we call ourselves insignificant. Nothing's insignificant with God, but God understands there's people who are rulers and mighty people. And then, of course, he thinks about how the world would look at other people who are insignificant to them. People that may not have much money, not much means. Their lineage, so to speak, their ancestry may not be what others could say. But the point is God can use anybody, anything, and God used the little town of Bethlehem to be the birthplace of Jesus. And then, of course, even more insignificant to the world, of course, would be being born in a manger, not being born in what we call a home or a place where people maybe possibly were born even in those days. But the point is, being born probably in a stable, being laid in a manger. So no one's insignificant. If you're out there and you're listening to this, of course, and you think about your life and think, well, I'm little. Well, Bethlehem was little. And it was even making a point that 700 years before Christ would be born, that out of you would come the ruler. And that's very important. So that's what we take from this. We take from this that God uses anyone. He can use the mighty, of course, but he can also use the little as we use that terminology. And if you're out there and you think, man, can God use me? Of course he can. He can use you. And sometimes especially because you see yourself not, big in your own eyes. In other words, you don't think yourself proud and God, he could really use me because I'm something else. Well, when we humble ourselves, then God can exalt us. So many things we could bring into this. But I love the old hymn, 1868, long time ago. Many people have sung this hymn now. And of course, most of us are familiar, at least with that first verse. But O little town of Bethlehem, how still we see thee lie. Above thy deep and dreamless sleep, the silent stars go by. Yet in thy dark streets shineth the everlasting light. The hopes and fears of all the years are met in thee tonight. And of course, we're thinking about Jesus being born in the little town of Bethlehem. So I hope that's encouraging to you today. Hope you have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow. We'll take another hymn and look at its biblical and spiritual significance. So have a great day, and we'll see you tomorrow.